Hey, what's going on guys? John here, and today I'm going to do a video review for the RETROPIE build by Roman. This is actually a custom build designed for emulating multiple video game consoles, basically pre-2000s, and I wanted to go through and show you Roman's build, give you some idea of what to expect. There's different variations of this build, but I'm actually going to do a full boot up. This is actually a custom arcade machine that I had custom built by a company called the Arcade Guys, and Roman actually builds these custom builds that are designed for either the Raspberry Pi 4 or the Pi 400. So I'm going to go ahead and boot this up. You guys can see the full boot up on this, give you some idea what to expect, and I'll go through some of the interface as well so you can see what kind of games are on here. So this usually takes a second to come up, and once the switches over, I don't want my HDMI to kick over on the other portal, but this goes through an initial boot sequence on the Pi, and then it's going to go through more or less a random intro that's usually a little bit different every time you do a boot. So right now here you can see it just scrolls through a few different games and does kind of a cool intro. So once we're past the initial boot screen, we'll be in the main interface where we can now start browsing through. This utilizes Emulation Station as its main kind of back-end GUI. So I'm able to utilize all of my arcade sticks to control everything within the menu, as well as using my main player 1 and player 2 for like two-player games like fighting games. And then you've got the 4-button configurations on players 3 and 4 for other games like The Simpsons or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, other games that would be utilized. So one of the things I really love about this particular build is the way the interface is designed is you have all of the main consoles that you can browse through here. So they've organized everything in terms of the system type, and then there's also some additional games. So just kind of starting with the very beginning here, you have all games. This particular drive is a 512 gigabyte drive, so depending on the size of drive that you get from Roman, you're going to be looking at different amounts of games, right? So this particular build has 14,000 games in total. If you go with, say, a 64 or 128 gig drive, obviously it's going to be a lot less. And you're not going to have as many consoles or as many games. You can set up your own specific favorites. So what I did in here is basically added specific games that I wanted. Each game has its own kind of trailer that will play, and you can see a preview of the game. You can also see, I'm going to turn this down a little bit. There we go. I have a controller here at the bottom that controls the sound that comes through the speakers here at the top. But basically you can see the players count here, so you can see this one's 3 players, the date it was released, the genre that it is, and the developer that actually made the game. So as you go through each game, it pretty much gives you this data, and what I did is I added a bunch of games that were either recommended from guides online or games that I remember playing in the arcades as a kid, things like that. So you've got tons and tons of games to pick from, and it's really nice because you get an idea of like what's that game actually look like to play. Now if I want, I can actually hit back and just jump into any games that I previously played, and now we can start going through each of the consoles. So we have 3DO. This is basically arcade classics, essentially MAME. There's literally a couple thousand plus games to play from. You have Atari 2600, Atari 5200, 7800, Lynx, Adam's Wave, ColecoVision, Daphne. You have Dreamcast, Family Computer, Sega Game Gear, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Intellivision, Sega Master System, Sega Mega Drive, Nintendo 64, Naomi, Nintendo 3DS, Neo Geo, NES, Neo Geo Pocket, Neo Geo Pocket Color. You have the PC Engine, and then ports is essentially a few different apps. You have PSP, PlayStation Portable, PlayStation 1. This is a residual VM based game. There's only one in there. RETROPIE settings for configuration in the front end here if you needed to change controllers or anything like that, doing different configurations. Sega Saturn, Genesis 32X, Sega CD, Sega SG-1000, Super Nintendo, Vectrex, Philips Video Pack, Virtual Boy, Wonder Swan Color, and then this is where this actually gets cool. He actually organized this by type of game, so you can anticipate, you know, do I want to look for just games that are Castlevania games or Mega Man games? So he took some of the most popular categories and sorted all of those games into these categories. So we have all the Batman games. These are beat 'em up specific type games: Castlevania, Donkey Kong, Double Dragon, Fatal Fury, Final Fantasy, Cody, which is kind of like a video-based player, Lego games, specifically light gun games, Mario-based games, Mega Man, Metal Slug, Metroid, Mortal Kombat, Open Bore. This is only one game in that. You've got some pinball games, racing games, Sonic, Spider-Man, sports, Star Wars, Street Fighter, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, X-Men, Zelda games, and then we basically go back to all. So what's cool about this is, let's say I wanted to play a specific Zelda game, I could go in here and find any of the Zelda games that have come out. So some of these may be like modified, but here for example is a Game Boy Zelda. This is the original on the NES, and then there's some variations of that, and then there's also versions that may be in other languages. And you can really go through. So now we have like Zelda 2, and again you have many different variations of this. So there are some repeats. This is Zelda 2, and you even got another like language variation in here. So you can back out and again look at any of these. So it's pretty cool how they did this. Like if I wanted to play any of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games, you can see you have all the variations of like Game Boy, arcade, Sega, Super Nintendo. Basically gives you every variation of all of these Turtles games, and you can play any of them, right? So we'll go in and maybe I'll load up, let's see, a good example. So this is Turtles in Time. That one's on the Sega. I usually like to load ones that are designed for the arcade because you know that the compatibility is going to be a little bit better given that we are playing it really is designed for this. So if you hit enter, this goes through a loading screen. It's then going to pretty much boot right into the game pretty quickly. Usually doesn't take too long for most games. It even does like a RAM ROM check, like it's literally, you know, repeating this. You got the old FBI warnings, pretty funny. And then this boots into the game, and I can use my start select to add. So I've hit start on player 1. I'm going to do this on each of them. So now all of them are ready to go, and I can hit start, and now the game's going to load up, and this is pretty much ready to go. A lot of the games have artwork that will show, because this is a 42-inch screen, you have like little artwork that will graphically display on the left and the right to fill the void of some of that extra space. So it really works out nicely in that case. But now I'm pretty much ready to go. I'm playing as player 1, and if I want to jump in with any other player, I can now start controlling them. So if you have a group of people over, you get an arcade setup like this, this is going to work perfectly. You may want to find that I had to do a graphical adjustment to get like some smoothing on this. I don't have specific instructions on this, but if you reach out to Roman, just send him a message, he can actually help you out with that. I will also say the support from Roman was absolutely amazing. I had a ton of help in terms of just getting some stuff going with light guns that I was setting up, making sure that the build works really well. He's really there to support you and help you get everything set up properly, and I think that's one of the biggest benefits. You know, this is something that if I was to build it on my own, try to set this up, try to replicate it, try to find all the ROMs, get all this stuff set up, it just would be insane amounts of time. So he actually spends, you know, really a full-time 40-hour plus week just building these builds, configuring them, testing games, making sure stuff is working, and not just loading them up with junk. Whereas a lot of other people out there that sell these builds, they don't spend the time to actually make sure this stuff is working, or there's a lot of junk in there, just things that aren't functional, right? So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video review on this, found it helpful. I think if you're looking to get a RetroPie based build, or even another build, I know he sells other ones as well for different variations depending on what you're looking for, this would be a good bet. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video review.